Hi guys, and welcome to Design and a Half. Today's episode was not necessarily planned. It was something that I decided to do on the spot just because I've seen a lot of people complaining both in my friends group as well as in my colleagues group about the new design of Facebook. So I thought about addressing this issue and creating a mini special episode just related to this, kind of like some points from my side, some personal opinions, some personal perceptions with regards to the new design, and a bit of a critique from my side, just because I feel like they kind of rushed into this one, and this new design isn't very user friendly, nor was it very well thought out. And I will just explain why in a couple of seconds. Okay, so starting with the cons, because I think these are the biggest ones as far as I'm concerned. I think the new design is quite confusing. I think it was well intended in the sense that they just wanted to get rid of having to deal with two types of websites, both mobile and the actual application itself, which is put up on the Android store, but the execution was really poor in the sense that they just used the actual mobile interface elements into the desktop website without doing any adaptations whatsoever. So if you're looking at the website as it is right now, it's clearly optimized for mobile usage, which is not necessarily something which is okay, because if you think about it, most of the people that use Facebook use it on the application and rarely do so on the mobile website. Sorry. That being said, if we compare it to the older version, it's kind of radical. The new design is quite radical in those terms, in the sense that there's little elements that are visually similar to the old website, and little that reminds you, oh, this is the old Facebook website, this is something which I use every day. Except if you're thinking about the icon, which is on the left side, obviously, on the top left side, and that tells you, yeah, this is about Facebook. This is the Facebook application. However, if I'm thinking about the design language, a lot of the stuff is very rounded, which is again weird for me, because I've never seen that particularly anywhere else in their design language, and it sort of reminds me of a plaything, of something very ludical, something very childish. And I think they wanted to do that just because they wanted to appeal to a larger audience, in the sense that they also have to cover the smaller children demographic. However, from my perspective, I think that's completely unethical. I mean, trying to convince children to board Facebook or make it more accessible for kids to be on Facebook, I think from an ethical standpoint, it's completely wrong. I don't think children should be allowed on Facebook and expose themselves to peer judgment as early as they do right now. I think it's completely wrong. It's my personal opinion as a fellow parent, and I think Facebook is something which is really ill understood by the younger demographic. So what they sort of did was nice, by all means. It was pretty crappy thing to do. But moving on. The one thing that bugs me, the other thing that bugs me about the new design is the fact there's absolutely no guided tour that explains where everything went and basically does some sort of transition from the old design into the new design. Sort of like here's what changed into the new version. Like, there's absolutely nothing telling you about that. And I think that's completely wrong, especially if you're thinking about the fact that Facebook also tries to cover a slightly older demographic and people who use it for different purposes. For example, if you're thinking about people that use Facebook for business, like this new language that they are using, this visual language, is completely not okay for that purpose. It's just not. It's just a design language that is very specific for childish communication types, rounded corners. It's very approachable, whereas business communication does not necessarily want to be as approachable all the time, especially if we're talking about corporate business. Like, think about a corporate Facebook page that looks extremely playful and like totally out of place in this new design. It's just not okay, guys. That's not okay from a lot of points of view. Moving on, there's a lot of information that's hidden in this new design of that Facebook launched, and I think that's primarily wrong, because Facebook tries to cover so many aspects. They even have payment systems. So I'm sure not as many people knew about this part, but they have Facebook Pay and it's integrated, but it's hidden somewhere on the left side menu if you're digging down into a rollout, where those colorful nice icons are. And that's just part of the thing that's hidden. A lot of the stuff is hidden, for example, behind the plus sign. So if you want to create a new event and stuff like that, it's no longer on the call to action edit box that you used to have, where when you typed something in, it automatically told you you want to create something, and then you selected whatever you want to create. No, they just moved it from there into a plus sign, and I don't really understand why they did that, because it's way more convenient to do it when starting off the flow from the edit box, since on mobile that's the primary place where you start your flows when doing something in Facebook. For example, if you want to post something in Facebook, you start from the edit box, or if you start from the host application and then you post stuff on Facebook through the host application and the APIs and whatnot. However, in this situation, you have to actually use that plus button, and I think that's really weird. And tying into this whole discussion, there's another thing I noticed, that since they wanted to make this application so similar to the mobile one, why didn't they actually have the plus, the story and the post in the same edit box? Like, you know how if you use the mobile the mobile app, whenever you want to post something on Facebook, you can post it simultaneously on Facebook, normal as a normal post, as well as a story, which is something which is not happening in the desktop version of the application, or on the desktop version of Facebook. I don't really understand why, though, because if you're thinking about optimizing a website based on your mobile application, you should basically follow your own principles and apply those principles onto the desktop and be consistent about it. Because if you're not consistent about it, you'll have like these small gaps of flow which sort of don't make sense if you're thinking about a very mobile oriented user. They just don't make sense at all. Aside from all of these things, I've seen there's a strong focus on watch, friends, marketplace, and groups in terms of sort of primary actions, just because they move them very, very at the very top. Basically, I don't necessarily think that friends is something you interact with as often, especially if you think about the fact that they also have the chat window on your right side, and you can, if you want to interact with a friend, you can just click on his face and you can already start talking to him. I don't think it sort of makes sense, but whatever, if it's their call. The marketplace I totally understand, because they really want to create a strong contender for Shopify. They want to create a strong contender for all of these post-it type platforms for auctions. And in the last period, Facebook has grown quite a while with their marketplace format. It's grown to become quite popular, which is why I believe they've moved it up into this very in-your-face position. However, what I noticed is that in certain situations, I was getting all sorts of pings and notifications from the marketplace, although I didn't necessarily post anything there. I didn't interact with a listing and so on. So I don't really understand how I could have gotten any notifications on anything market related if I didn't interact with the marketplace itself, just viewed items, for example. Like, why do I see notifications? I don't care about them. Groups too, but again, talking about groups, I feel like if you're comparing it with the older version of the website, groups were on the left side and someplace on your sort of in the middle. There was a specific place where your groups were posting updates, and when you could click on that specific group, and it would bring you to that groups page. Now you have to go top and click the group, select the group you want, and then go to that groups page. I think it's a bit more clicks to get there, but I can't be 100% sure, so don't take my word for that part. As I said earlier, call to action is on the feed. Important actions and are in nondescript places that are not necessarily easy to grasp, easy to understand, are not necessarily intuitive. And overall, I think that the website feels a tad slower to interact with. It doesn't feel as snappy as as performancey as it did before. Even though, to be honest, Facebook itself is kind of sluggish and slow, and I never thought it performed quite amazing, just because there's tons of code running behind it that are rendering things in real time. So stuff is being built while you're just watching it. So there's not necessarily something which is already built and then running. It's just all compiled at runtime. The rooms are quite visible in terms of feature, but to be honest, I've never understood why they're so visible or what they're actually useful for. I mean, please tell me or drop a comment if you want to about the whole room situation, and tell me if you've ever used rooms. I mean, I don't remember any time using rooms, nor do I remember any specific reason to use the rooms feature on Facebook. Like, I just have no clue why someone would use it, what it's good for. If you know it, please drop me a comment below and just let me know what you think it's good for. I would be more than curious to find out. Another thing is the ability to organize photos when uploading. Like, this thing has been gone for quite some time. I think it was gone even in the old version of the website, but in this one I've actually never been able to locate that feature again. And that was, to me, was quite important, because whenever I was uploading, say, pictures on Facebook from or older photos of myself or of my son or of a trip, for example, I would want them to be organized in albums, in folders, or just have some way of being able to organize my photos that are on Facebook. Like, that thing is absolutely gone. It's no longer there. And I think it's such a shame, because it was so friggin' useful to a lot of people. I'm pretty sure I wasn't the only one who was organizing their photos. At least not if you're looking back at 1 year and just say like, whatever, I don't care about these photos, they can just sit there. I doubt people didn't use the album feature, but whatever. And like I said, if the whole point was to unify mobile and desktop, but mobile specific interactions like posting to story and to both story and actual timeline are missing, I don't really understand what they wanted to achieve with this whole thing. So, to be honest, it's a mystery for me, but whatever. And last but not least, dark mode. Dark mode is something which has become a thing lately, and I've never actually understood why it's so important, especially in applications like mobile, Facebook website, for example. Okay, I totally get it. I totally get why they added it on Android, on iOS, and the other platforms. The one thing I don't really get is why they added it on this website, because, to be honest, you don't have the same features that you have on a mobile phone, where you actually can enable the system to take over and theme your app according to the system. So unless they bring something in that actually tells you to allow them to see where you live and what time it is, to be able to deduce if it's night or day and just apply the theme automatically based on time zone, I don't think it has any specific use. It's just something that is personal preference, if you want to. and I don't think it's necessarily something that should be elevated to that level to which it's so visible in settings, and rather be something which is sort of personalization, something like that within the user's page, but not necessarily so elevated as to be visible on a right side menu that it's clickable or something like it's right now. You can just pop up, I think, the settings menu and you'll find the dark mode there. I think, I'm not really sure. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I might be. So those being the cons, now I'll get to the actual pros. And in this particular case, the list is quite short. There's just 3 main things which are cool. One of them is it's easier to actually chat with people for what it's worth. So the implementation of having people on your right side in a bubble format, which is really cool, and they have a larger face to be able to determine who you're actually talking with in a shorter amount of time. I think that's awesome, and I think it's really cool that they did that. What I would be missing from the whole chat experience is to be able to mute certain conversations without having to mute the whole tab. And to be honest, right now that thing is not necessarily intuitive. Why I'm saying it could be useful, because most of us use Facebook even during work time, and it could be really embarrassing, and not to mention stupid, for someone to actually be chatting with you. Say it's your wife that tells you need to buy something, some groceries when you're coming back from the office or whatever, and you're in a meeting, and you constantly get this pinging sound, which is really incredibly annoying. And you can make it you can mute it on mobile, but you cannot do the same thing on the friggin' website. You actually have to mute the whole tab, and that might not be something you want. For example, you just want to mute one conversation because the other ones are sort of important for you. I don't know, I just have no idea, but this is just basic functionality if you want to. Like, it's the same functionality they have in WhatsApp. And since WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, and it's being sort of shown under the same roof, I don't understand why they could just not take the some of those features from WhatsApp and move them towards Facebook, just to make stuff seamless, if you will. That would have made so much sense from my point of view, but whatever. The other thing that is really cool about this new version of Facebook, I think, is managing pages. So in a sense, managing pages is easier in the sense that you can actually see them on the right side, just like you see people. That's really cool. However, if you're actually going to manage a website, a page, oh man, that's a completely new thing. The one page I have currently up for design and a half is using this new design, and to be honest, it's absolute friggin' hell, and it was hell to set it up properly, and I still think I missed some points. For example, in an older version of Facebook, you were able to add more than one link to one specific page. For example, if your page has 3 or more websites, you cannot add all of them there. There's just no option to add custom link, so that you can add 3 or 4 links that are all pointing to specific services that you have. For example, you have, like me, you have a podcast. I have my podcast on Podbean, I have it on Spotify, I also have it on YouTube. Say I want to put a link for all of those three media links, like there's just no way to do it. If I want to optimize for a search engine, there's just no way to do it like that. I think that's quite shit, to be honest, because most companies need to be able to add more than one link, because they never have just one website or one thing. Like, for example, if you have support, you have a specific website. If you have a wiki, it actually depends on usage. But the website used to be more flexible, like Facebook used to be more flexible than it is right now, and I think that they just narrowed it down quite violently to something which is very barely usable in some ways. So they restricted user experience significantly if you're comparing it with the older versions. And I think that's just a huge regression from my point of view. Well, that's how it is, I guess. Okay, last but not least, one of the other positive points that I like about this is funny enough, dark mode. So dark mode is actually not something bad. I definitely think it's useful, but and in a way I think it's useful for people who have specific needs or specific work environments and needs to work specific work environments. And by that I mean, if you're just the type of person that likes to work at night, you'll definitely enjoy the dark mode. However, if you're someone who works during the day, you're most likely to appreciate Facebook in the lighter format. That's my personal opinion, and that's my guess. Please comment if you feel like that's not true, or if you disagree with me. I would be more than happy to see you engage and comment with the videos or the podcast itself. So please tell me what you guys think, and in ending, I would really encourage you to discuss about this whole Facebook situation in the comments, and let me know what you guys think about this new Facebook redesign. Do you actually like it? Do you hate it? What do you think about it? What sort of emotions does it trigger in you as a user and as a daily sort of consumer of Facebook information? Okay guys, that was it for today's episode. I really want to thank you for sticking with me for so long, and I hope you have an amazing evening, and see you next time. Bye bye, take care.